This is Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in the Long Beach area. Today we are joined by Warren Furutani. You know him well. He was a member of the California State Assembly. He is now a state Senate nominee, hoping to return to Sacramento. Congratulations on making it through the primary.
Thank you.
You are advancing for an open seat currently held by Isidore Hall,
correct,
who is running for Congress. I want to get a sense as to why you want to go back to Sacramento. What you were there for 6 years. Why the return engagement?
You know, it's unfinished business. When I was there, even though it was term limited environment, I had an agenda, which was career technical education, workforce development. Higher ed's really important in college and university, but not everybody's going to go.
Right.
And people need technical education.
Can we talk about that? Because I do think that for so long there was this unfortunate view that if you didn't go to college, it's over.
Right.
And the reality is, I have learned that not everyone's going to college, and that's okay. And I do think there's now a shift in that thinking, but a shift requires funding.
Right.
And so I'm wondering, auto shop was cut from schools, wood shop was cut from schools. What's happening now with an improving economy in terms of those trades with your hands?
I think, Brad, exactly what you described is true, that people are coming back around and looking at this whole issue of training. And it's not so much just working with your hands.
Right, but you know what I'm saying.
Sure, exactly. But the kind of skill set that you need to be successful relative to where the jobs are. And the jobs are in the technical fields. I mean, that's where our country leads, and the state of California in particular, is in technology, all these different kinds of ways of advancing new products, manufacturing.
But I remember a few years ago, in the midst of the recession, the community college, statewide community college system was looking at trying to streamline the community college process because they could not keep as many sections and so as many courses. And so they seem to become singularly fixated on matriculating students to four-year institutions.
Right.
But again, that forgets that we have students that are there for vocational purposes. With an improvement in the economy, with sections being added back, are you seeing or do you need to advocate for more vocational technical ed at community colleges?
You do have to advocate for. If anybody's been to a hospital of late, they have run into large numbers of Filipino nurses, and they're fantastic and they do a great job. But a lot of them come from the Philippines because we're not making them and producing them here in our own communities. And when you look at it money-wise, it's more cost-effective to have 100, 200 students in the English 1A class than it is to have 25 in the nursing cohort.
Right.
But we have to do that.
I want to ask you about nurses specifically. We've learned that they are very professions that bring tremendous satisfaction personally, but also financially. Well-paid professions. We also know that State Senator Marty Block a few years ago was a big proponent and ultimately had passed SB 850, which allows community colleges to provide bachelor's degrees.
Right.
And so as part of that system, everyone became very excited. We need more nurses, but the problem is there can be no duplication with CSU and UC. And so we don't see these community colleges being able to offer nursing degrees or other degrees of that vein. Assuming return to Sacramento, will you or can you or do you want to look at that issue of community college bachelors being able to offer more so you can continue on your goal to create more career tech jobs?
I think it's an example of breaking down barriers. Traditional places where people siloed their education process, and really it becomes limiting. How do we make it so we have a system that's more holistic, where you don't have to go through the old traditional ways? You just talked to Dr. Felton Williams with the Long Beach Unified. They have the California Long Beach Promise,
which I want to tell our viewers is remarkable. Literally from K-12, Long Beach Unified is looking to move kids then to LBCC if that's the right fit, and then to Cal State Long Beach if that's the right fit.
Exactly, but it's a pathway.
Right.
And it isn't limited by, well, wait a minute, you only can go this far, then you have to start all over again.
But
it's all interconnected.
Let me ask you about those pathways, because for better or for worse, we now have the local control funding formula, and that gives school districts more discretion, more flexibility. So can you in Sacramento effectuate changes as easily as you could have before, because now there's a devolution of power to the districts?
Well, I think it's an interesting time of change in that we have a relatively new, although Tom Torlickson's been there for one
Right.
term, we have a new community college statewide chancellor coming from Long Beach,
Right, Eloy Oakley.
And then at the state level, I don't know who the new chancellor is going to be,
Right.
because the one that's there is going to be there just not much longer.
Right.
And it's just a time people are looking at education differently. When I was there, we did an assessment of the master plan, California
Right.
master plan. A lot of things that were in place with the first Governor Brown
Right.
are no
Meaning
longer
the father
there.
or
Yeah,
the
the
son?
father?
The father, okay.
The father.
Right.
That in fact, promises we made about everybody being able to go to college, this thing that Bernie Sanders brought up about free college, that's nothing new. We used to have free college.
Let's talk about that. You know, I think it was prior to 1984, there was no charge for community college. I
Right.
think is what it was. I remember in the 80s, to go to UCLA or San Diego State, it was hundreds of dollars,
Right.
maybe $1,000.
Right.
Now it's $7,000 for CSU, $12,000 for UC a year. That does not include room, board, books. Still a fairly good bargain vis-a-vis private schools and/or other states, but that's a lot of money.
And last year also, Brad, 40% of the freshman class at UC was out of state.
Right.
Because they pay higher fees.
Or at the best schools.
Yeah.
At the best schools, right. They're the most prestigious schools.
And so in that context,
Right.
then, how many people are coming from California?
Right.
To me, it's a matter of a recommitment. It's a matter of a political will. I mean, if you look at community college already, you have what's called a bog waiver,
Right,
where you
right.
can go without paying tuition. But there's got to be accountability. It's not a matter of just getting people in
You
the
know
door.
what I've noticed?
You
And
got to
I
get them
think-
graduated.
I think this was addressed a bit by the middle class scholarship that was proposed by former Speaker John Perez, although I think it may have been tinkered with. But the bottom line is, I think part of the challenge is those that are the most economically disadvantaged can access assistance. Those at the top of the economic spectrum don't need assistance. At the middle, I mean, one could make $150,000 a year in Los Angeles, which if you were in Nebraska, you'd be living in a mansion and not be able to pay for college.
Right.
And so what about that middle?
Well, I think because of the presidential campaigns and what Bernie has brought up and now Hillary is talking about, people are looking at this issue of debt,
Right.
school debt, college debt. And we really
over
have
$1
to
trillion.
address well, it's crazy. It's crazy. And exactly the group you're talking about, the middle class, they're the ones that have to pay the full freight. And the only way you can do that is to take out a loan.
Right.
And then in this loan process, ways of paying it back, being able to serve as a teacher, being able to serve
Right.
in social responsible areas that people then can use as a way of reducing their debt. Those are ideas that have to come back again.
So what can you do in Sacramento on this issue of college affordability? Be it CSU, UC, maybe even privates.
Well, I think the place I want to start is to get the first 2 years of community college with accountability factors
Got it.
put in to be free tuition. It's going to cost in terms of books and other things
Right.
still, but free tuition. But you have to be able to accomplish certain things relative to your education, not just to go. So with that process, making sure they matriculate through the system and get into exactly what you were saying, a certification program, go into a certain skill area, or matriculate to a 4-year college. This is what we need to do. And we need to look at it from the standpoint of the jobs and the careers that we're looking at for the 21st and 22nd century, not the 19th or the 20th.
His name is Warren Furutani. He was a member of the California State Assembly. Also, he was a member of the LAUSD board, the LACCD board. He is now a state Senate nominee, the 35th
35th,
district,
correct.
currently held by Isadora Hall, who's running for Congress. I'm Brad Pomerance. You're watching Charter Local Edition.